It's review time! And once again, we're doing a review on another Netflix live-action anime adaptation. And if you can see the title behind me, then you know what we're covering today. And of course, apologies, I'm feeling a little stuffed up today because of the cold weather and everything. But I have a few things to say about this particular anime, but I'm going to be covering each episode. I'm actually going to try and cover 2 episodes for a video because I ended up finished watching the series late last night. Because the reason is there's only 5 episodes in this series. 5. And boy, do I have a few things to say about the series, so let's start right off with the first 2 episodes. Alright, so let's just jump right into it. So, with the first episode, this adaptation does something interesting. If you've never watched the original Yu Yu Hakusho, or how the first episode started, and this is your, first introduction to watching it, it does a pretty good job introducing, what happened to the main character in the series, because like the first episode of the anime, it starts off with showing that Yusuke is dead, and is a ghost, basically. How he died, he basically was a delinquent, but deep down, he had a kind and gentle heart. But he just basically, hated everybody, and didn't want to take any lectures from anyone, and didn't like what to be told, or just didn't like being told what to do. Well, one day, he basically goes and saves a kid that almost gets run over by supposedly in the anime it was just a guy on the phone in his truck, and basically Yusuke dies from the crash, but he saves the kid, and now ends up being a ghost. In this adaptation's case, the driver was possessed by some weird demon insect bug thing that got inside of him and just possessed the guy and made him drive crazy. Yeah, this adaptation changes a lot of things from the original anime source material. Like the fact, here's the crazy thing. In the original Japanese, the demons of this anime were actually called yokai. Which is weird because yokai are different mythical demonic creatures, not straight up demons, which this show basically says. Yeah, it's kind of a very, very weird change if you think about it. So anyway, we get the whole gist of Yusuke being met by Botan, who is supposedly the Grim Reaper of the spirit world. But she goes by different names, and she takes her to her boss, Enma, or basically Ko-Enma. And now, basically, Yusuke's job is to become the spirit world's first ever spirit detective if he wants to get... if he wants to get his life back. Yeah, I'm confused because the first 5 episodes, he had to do a whole spirit beast thing with an egg in order to come back to the real world. Or to come back to the living world. I guess they just basically forgot to do that. So yeah, Yusuke, he gets his body back after trying to save Keiko, who's trying to save Yusuke's body from a burning fire. That was caused by one of his classmates who was possessed by a demon. And with Yusuke getting his body back, now he has to go off and stop that kid from becoming a yokai. And I'll be honest, the fight choreography in the first episode is actually pretty dope. There was definitely a lot of really great fight choreography in this series, and it shows from this very first episode. So Yusuke doesn't really know how to do his spirit energy, but he uses it to basically defeat the demon inside, pull out, and just basically crush it in his hand. Not only saving his life again, but saving the kid's life. And that's basically when Yusuke just now becomes a full-fledged spirit detective. Now he will have to face one of his toughest challenges. 3 demons who stole 3 different artifacts. Well, basically called the Artifacts of Darkness. And let's talk about that for episode 2. So, episode 2 starts off... I had to clear my throat there. Episode 2 starts off after they introduce us to the 3 demons that stole the Artifacts of Darkness. We have Hiei, the Master Swordsman demon. You have Kurama, the demon fox kitsune spirit who uses the Rose Whip. And Goki, just a giant muscle man demon. And I'll be honest, I feel like they didn't give much attention to Goki in the series because he was a pretty, tough force to deal with in the anime. which means that Yusuke had a hard time fighting him the first time. Second time went pretty well. Now, I'll try to explain this as quick as I can, but the specific powers that these three artifacts have. You have the Orb of Bast, who uses the power to steal the souls of children. You have the Forlorn Hope, which is a mirror that if you make a wish on it, that will come true, but the person granting that wish will die. And then you have the Shadow Sword, which basically will create a Jigan Eye, which basically will make someone a full-fledged demon once it opens up quickly. They have really messed it up in this anime by episode 2. They all just look very generic and bland, and all they do is just vibrate for the series. And I'll get this out of the way for anyone who hasn't watched. Spoiler alert for anyone who has not watched episode 2. By episode 3, we don't get much of the Shadow Sword in this. Or I basically should say the Shadow Dagger. So, after basically defeating Goki in a one fight only, and it's a pretty well done fight scene. Again, the fight choreography is pretty good. Yusuke basically meets up with Kurama and says the same thing that he said in the anime. Just give me a couple days and I will bring the mirror back to you. And I will talk about this real quick. They really did Kurama dirty in this series. He was one of my favorite characters from the original anime. His backstory was just really tragic, and that's why you liked him as a character as much. Here, they just skimmed through his character arc and saying, yeah, I basically tricked this woman so I could get a mother, so I could learn if demons can actually care. They just skim right through that, sadly. Other than that, Yusuke basically gets the mirror. Kuwabara actually starts getting his spirit awareness and meets, Botan and actually has kind of a crush on her. That's mostly skimmed through. So now Yusuke has to go and get the final item from Hiei in the next episode. And there we go. That's my thoughts on the first 2 episodes of this adaptation. Now, I'm not going to give you my final thoughts until the last episode. But I will give you a few thoughts that I have on episodes 1 and 2. So, the first episode's pretty good. It quickly introduces the characters and the story that Yusuke goes through in order to, redeem himself. They skim through a lot of episode 2, sadly, which is the saddest thing I can say about this series. But, oh boy, when we get to episodes 3, 4, and 5... oh, you will start to see my rage more because of how I felt how they did this series dirty. So, what do I give the first 2 episodes? I give them a pretty solid 6 out of 10. Could have really done more with introducing the story a bit more in the arc that you're trying to introduce for this series for the first season. But not too bad, honestly.